Alright, so here we are. I have prepared my script. The show that I have chosen for this demonstration is Molière's Misanthrope. I wrote up a quick design statement. This is sort of very quick and should only be used for demonstration purposes. So what I wrote was, The Misanthrope is a French comedy about a man, Alceste, and his attempt to end eventual failure to court the beautiful Célimène. This Molière play satirizes in the hypocrisy of the French aristocracy or aristocratic society, while also pointing out some very common flaws in human behavior, something Molière is very famous for. The overall direction of the show we chose is that of a circus. Molière's musings on the futility of humans to save face regardless of their actual thoughts plays right into the hectic and colorful machinations of a circus. All of the colors in every scene will be very over-exaggerated to follow along with this idea. All of the courtship scenes between Alceste and Célimène will be bathed in a very intense red to highlight the intense passion that Alceste believes his honesty brings. All of the scenes between the two fools, Eliante and Clétendre, and their attempts to woo Célimène will have distinctly green hues to highlight their foolishness. They will eventually come to a head when they both realize the lies they were fed, and the lighting will change to a pale lavender to represent their clarity of mind. When Célimène is alone on stage, we will see a blue that represents her need to be loved, as well as her inevitable loneliness when she is eventually rejected by her suitors. Bosque and Dubois will be shrouded in amber to highlight their roles as comic relief. So that was just sort of a brief design statement. Take note that my description of the show was really only 2 sentences, and it left me the rest of that time to be able to talk about the show. It's probably a little long. I don't know that I would have necessarily picked that show specifically for competition, but something else to note, because I chose about 5. I specifically mentioned about 5 different scenes. Part of my research would then need to be at least 12 different pictures, 2 for each of the scenes I described, that related to those colors and those feelings. Pardon me. And those would go with your design statement, preferably labeled as to what part they're talking about. So now that our research is out of the way, I'm going to start on the ground plan. For the purposes of this demonstration, I am using Vectorworks. Like I said before, anything that I do here, you can also do by hand. The only thing that I would warn you about is, if you are going to do it by hand, please go out and buy some drafting pencils. Realistically, you only need 2 different ones. You just need one that's a little bit lighter and one that's a little bit darker, like a B2 and an H2, or an H2 and an H4. You can usually pick those up at art supply stores. You can probably order them online for relatively cheap. Basically, you just need something that has a softer lead that comes out a little bit softer, so that when you, or a little bit lighter, so that when you go to make your light plot, you can draft in your scenic elements lighter than the plot. Because as a general rule of drafting, the darkest lines are the most important. So on your ground plan, all of the architecture and the set should be in dark lines, and on your light plot, all of the lighting instruments and the lighting positions should be dark, and the scenery and the architecture should be very light. With that in mind, the first thing we need after our research and our design statement is a ground plan. So my ground plan is going to be very basic. I'm going to assume that my theater is, let's say the actual stage is the playable space is a 40-foot by 25-foot stage. So we'll do, here's my back wall, by 25, 25, And then my plaster line, that'll make a little dotted line, and then let's say that I also have a little 6-foot apron. So there's my basic theater architecture. If you don't have anything that happens in the wings, you don't necessarily have to create the wings. If I wanted to, I would just make these lines like a dotted line to denote that they are playing space. And then I would, let's see, we have an extra 8 feet of wing space. And then this is the actual backstage. Well, 8 feet. So it would look something like that. So here's our basic theater. The next thing we would want to do is draft out our set. So this show is a pretty basic box set. So we'll do wall, a wall, a wall, back wall. Let's do a little window there, another little wall, and the front part of the set. Let's denote a door here. Let's do a little window outlet here. And there's our box set. If I want to get super complicated, I could put in an arc. I actually denoted this as a, wrong way. Oh boy, did I mess that one up. Stop it. Boy, I'm doing real good. So we'll just leave that there. So here's our little doorway. I will insert a little bit of text. Doorway. Window. Let's put a little love seat. Over here. Let's label that. Love seat. Let's have a table stage right. Say it's a little 6-foot table. Oops. We'll go over here. A little 6-foot table. Table. And couple chairs. Stop it. I suppose we should butt those chairs right up against the table. Chair. 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 And then let's put a rug in the middle of this floor. It's a big square rug. Big Big square rug. Boop. We'll label that rug. Alright, so here's our set. Basic set. Stage space. Here's your little front part. You should probably put your first row of seating. A lot of people like to see that. We'll label this first row. All right, so there's our ground plan. Very basic. So the next thing you want to do now that you have your set in place, as I believe this is required for the first year's, is the next step is your lighting key, which really is the first bit of paperwork on your road to your lighting design. So the lighting key, again, is nothing more than, I'm just going to draw it off in the corner here. It's just going to be a little circle. There's my little focus area. So referring back to my design statement, I specifically name at least 5 colors. So I have the red, I have the blue, I have the green, I have the amber, and I have the lavender. So the lavender I want to be front light, because lavender also makes convenient front light. So that's where I will start. So I want my lavender to be a front light. Put a little arrow on the front of that guy. Slap down some text. R51 is my favorite lavender. Let's make that text a little bigger. He seems really small. Oops. Bump that up. How about 18? Hey, there we go. Oh, didn't save it. Doing good. 18. There we go. Okay. So, front light, 51. So there's my lavender. So then I also need a blue, which I would like my blue to be a diagonal. So we'll make a little diagonal line. Throw a little arrow on him. I want it to be, let's say, R80. I like R80, it's a nice blue. Then I also need a red, which I will come at from the other side. Diagonal light is very nice because it, especially red and blue together, because they make a sort of a whiter light. I want that to be a very intense red, so I want him to be R16. Now I still have green and I got the blue, green and amber. So I think I'll want my amber to be another front light. So I'm going to scooch this guy over. Create another front light. He is going to be R04. Oops. Stop it. R04. So I also talked about green. I want my green to be downlight. There's nothing more awful than green downlight. Like I said earlier, the universal symbol for downlight is a light with a little crook on it, because otherwise it's backlight. I want... Nope, I don't want font. Oh, stop it. Size. What did I say? Green. Let's use like fun green. All right, so these are just the colors that I talked about in my statement. If I wanted to add more colors, I certainly could. I could add an additional side light system or two, but for this demonstration, we will leave it at this. Nice, simple 5 colors. So this is my lighting key. Now from this, I will literally create this is the basis of all of my other paperwork, because this tells me all the directions of lights I need. This tells me all of the color of light I need. The only thing it doesn't tell me is the number of lights I need. And so for that, the next step will be the creation of our light plot. So I'm going to create a new layer for my key. Move you guys to my key. And then I'll create a new plot. Okay. Great. So, because I'm using CAD software, it already grayed out all of the stuff that I need, which is perfect. So the first thing I'm going to do for my light plot is draw out any of the electrics that I already have. So let's say I have 3 electrics over stage, so we'll put one here, we'll put one here, and we'll put one here. And then let's say I have 2 front of house positions, so let's put him here, and let's put one here. And what's good to note is that you don't have to make your front of house positions to scale, because a lot of the times the distance between your plaster line and your front of house positions is too great. And so instead of putting them the exact amount of space from your plaster line back, you can scoot them forward, and it's pretty well understood that that's not true distance. Okay, so we're going to label these. So we got first electric, we got second electric, and we got third electric, and then we got first front house, and we got second front house. Alright, so now we got all our lighting positions, so now we can start putting on our lighting instruments. Before we do that, we should probably put in focus areas so that we know what we're actually focusing at. So I personally like using letters for my focus areas. You don't have to do that, but I prefer letters because it's less confusing. Because if there are already going to be a ton of numbers on all of your paperwork, and adding more numbers to me can get very confusing very quickly, and so I generally like to use letters as my focus points. And then put 2 back in this corner just to make sure that we light those up. So there are all of my focus points. So now that we know where our focus points are, let's refer back to our color key, because the color key will tell us what and how many lights we need to put out here. So I need 2 sections of front light. So I am going to put my faith that I know how many lights I need. So I'm going to I'll even use older units. I'm using Altman 360Qs 6x9s. Actually, probably a little bit further than that, so I'm going to use 6x12s. So I need 2 systems of front light. So for this front system, I'm going to put up, for the front row, like that. For the back row, or the second row, and then my back row I'm going to put up here. Okay. Now one of the advantages to doing CAD is now I can highlight all of them. Because I need to start labeling them. And so they're all being, they're all front lights. These are all R51. And I haven't come up with a channeler dimmer yet. So here they are all 51. And then I need to go through and label all their purposes. So this guy is focused to A, this guy is focused to B. And obviously, like I said earlier, you can do all of this by hand. It's just fastest for me to show you with the computer. I always like to do my labeling as I create the units, because otherwise it gets very easy to end up with a lot of information on the screen, and you can't quite figure out how to get it all on there. So I'll always highly advise people to label as you go. So there's my first front light system, and then we're going to do the exact same thing because I have two front light systems. So literally I'm just going to put these guys right next to each other because they're all going to the same place. But these guys are not R51. These guys are, what's my other color? R04. R04. But they are focused to the same place. So B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Alright, so there's all of my front light. The next color we'll move on to is my R80, which is then diagonal coming from the left side. So I'm going to do basically the exact same thing. I'm going to put these three lights over here. I'm going to try to maintain the same angle. If you're using if you have a compass, this is one of the best ways to do this. Otherwise, the CAD program is pretty useful. So let's stick with the 30-degree angle. Well, that one's going to have to fudge a little bit. That's okay. And he is almost spot on. So this guy will sort of fudge over here. This guy will move over here. Center him up a little bit. Okay. So, and then we're going to do the same thing. Just move them up to the front. And because of how the diagonals work, I don't think I need another system because this guy should be able to hit all of this and this guy should be able to hit all of this. So I should be able to hit everything with diagonals. So, go in. This guy will be focused on A, B, C, D, E. Oops, nope, did that wrong. E, But these are all the same color. These guys are all R80, I believe. R80. Right? R80? R80. Okay. So there's my diagonal coming from that direction. So now we're going to do the exact same thing because I have a diagonal from the opposite direction, R16. So we're probably going to want to go in roughly the same positions because I already did that measurement. Oh, that's close enough. And these guys are all R16, R16, R16. Excellent. And these guys are all going to focus from the other direction. So this guy is A, B, C, D, E, F. So there's all of my diagonal lights coming from that direction. So now the only light I'm missing is my R90 down light. I'm going to use an 8-inch Fresnel to do that. I'm pretty much just going to put one light over each of the areas. Just happen to line up with my electrics. Look at that. These guys are all R90. R90. And this guy is focused A to B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Alright, so I've now, this is literally all the lights for my plot from my lighting key. So this is every system. They all have their color, they all have their focus. Now let's say I want to add some specials, because I do have some specials in this show. And you don't necessarily have to talk about them in your description, but it certainly helps. So I don't have a special symbol. That's okay. So let's say I just want a big old downlight over the table. So there's going to be my table. I'm going to label his focus as table. He's going to be no color, which is generally referred to as N/C or NC. And then, just to be fun, I'm going to add a gobo wash to the front of the stage. I'm just going to add 4 lights with a random gobo in them. And they're just going to be gobo wash. And they're going to be about nice. How about a little bit darker violet? So about an R54. Okay, so there's all of my units for the show. Here's my design. From here, the next step should be doing your channels. The easiest way to do channels is to just channel according to your lighting key. So all of my R51 front lights are going to be one set of channels. So starting from R51 front light. So he's going to be my channel 1. Channel 1. My next one is going to be channel 2. My next one is going to be channel 3. And so on and so forth. 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's my first set of channels, and then my next is going to be my other set of front light, which is my R04, correct? Yes. And for ease of understanding, I'm going to skip channels, and these are going to start at 11. 11, 12. The reason why I do this is because it allows me to keep all of my different systems separated in my mind, because all of their channels start on a 1. It also means that all of my areas will have the same second number when I'm trying to remember what the channels are. So for example, all the lights that I'm focusing to A are going to be something 1. So my first front light is going to be 1, my second front light is going to be 11, my diagonal light is going to be 21, my other diagonal light is going to be 31, and my down light is going to be 41, so that all of my 1s focus to A. Where was I? G, which is 17, H, 18. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can theoretically, well, really, you can number anything any way you want, as long as it makes sense to you. But that's how I number things, because what it will do is when we actually get to our magic sheet, it'll make making your magic sheet much simpler. My diagonals, my other diagonals are going to be in the 30s, so 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. And my down lights are going to be in the 40s, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. 46. All right. Ooh, 2 more. 47 and 48. So there's my plot. The only thing I would probably do a little bit differently, I think I'm going to scooch my focus points over a little bit. So focus points really are just sort of references. I just want to make all of my unit information clear. There we go. Just to keep them out of the way a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. There we go. So now you can see all of my unit information. It's nice and clear. And then once you're done with all of that information, I would then go through and just put all your dimmers in. Dimmer information is relatively useless. Just keep in mind that if you do have 2 lights that have the same dimmer number, I will question that, because it means that they will both turn on at the same time, regardless of how you enter their channels. Oh, I didn't label my gobo washes, so I want my gobo washes to be, what, 51? Let's say I want my gobo wash to all be 1 channel. My gobo wash is 51. And my table special is 61. All right. The only other thing you need to do at this point is to, I mean, it doesn't matter for if you're hand drafting this, because you will do this on your channel hookup, but because I'm using a CAD program, I can just highlight everything, and these units are on second front of house. These units are on first front of house. These units are on first electric. These guys are on second electric. These guys, oh, what happened? There we go. These guys are on third electric. And then the next step would be to go through and number all of these with their unit numbers. You can number your units however you like. My suggestion is always stage right to stage left, just because that makes the most sense to me. Where's my unit number? Unit number 1, 2, 3. Like I said earlier, this is all parts that get they take quite a bit of time. So I'm only going to go through and number my second electric. Number 10, number 11, 12. All right, so the unit number goes inside, and that's just a reference to what number unit it is on the electric. So this is unit number 7 on the first electric. That's why there's a little 7 in there. Excuse me. So the only other thing that this plot is missing, which I probably should have done first, but that's okay, is a title block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a border, a title block, and a instrument key. So my title block is going to go in the corner. And it'll have the show name here. It'll have my name here. It'll have the date here. It'll have the scale here. And then maybe we'll leave the bottom part for the director. What piece of information am I missing? Okay. So let's put in some text. I'm the designer. Let's make that text a little bit smaller so that it actually fits. My scale is 1/4 inch scale. So 1/4 inches equals 1 foot. The name of the show, The Misanthrope. We'll make that a little bit bigger. The Misanthrope. What am I missing? I am missing a piece of information. Designer scale. Anyway, this is where you would put it, is in the bottom right corner. And then in the bottom left corner, just give yourself enough space to be able to define all of your instruments. And then you just pick an extra instrument and just put one of each kind of lights that you used. And then label them. And so there's my legend. I could also label it legend. Legend. There's my legend. All right. So there's my light plot, complete with a legend and a title block. So the next step would be creating a magic sheet. So from this document, from my lighting plot, my magic sheet, I'm just going to take each of these systems. I can go back to my color key. I'm going to take each of these systems and just make out a little drawing that shows where each of them is going on the stage and what channels they are. So for example, my front light is starts at channel 1, is R51, and his front light. So we'll start that down here. So if I just draw a little box for the stage, so there's my little stage. I need my little arrow showing that it's front light. My little text that says R51. And then I'm just going to put the channel numbers corresponding to the focus areas. Just like that. Maybe actually put them where they actually go. Something like that. And so these represent literally the focus areas that you just put up there, and the channels associated with the specific lights that are pointed at these areas. So this channel 1 right there represents this light because it's channel 1, it's a front light, it's R51, and it's focused A. So this focus point that this light is assigned to corresponds with this number. And then you just do that for all your other ones. So let's just copy and paste, because we're going to do basically the exact same thing except with our other front system, which is, what did I say, R04. So R04. And the only other thing we need to adjust are the channel numbers, because these were focused in the same areas. These numbers started with 1. So again, these numbers represent these lights, 11, 12, 13, and their corresponding focus areas. So once more, we'll do that with our other light. This time we'll do it with the diagonal light, so we'll have to get rid of that arrow. Put in diagonal, do a little arrow on it. So our diagonal from that side is R80. So R80 does not have those two areas, so we can, whoops. So their focus is a little bit more broad. Change this guy to R80. This guy is actually 21, 22, 23. And then we'll copy and paste that for our other diagonal. So he is coming from the other direction. And my other direction is R16. So R16, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and so on and so forth. So this is what your magic sheet should look like. It's nothing more than a cheat sheet that tells me what channels bring up what color and what direction on what parts of the stage. It really doesn't have to be any fancier than this. So then your next, once you are done with your magic sheet, the next bit of information that you will use, or that you need to create, is your, for the third years, I believe, is a channel schedule. And the channel schedule is going to be composed of all of this information. And we'll see if I can Vectorworks is very nice that it will actually generate all of this paperwork for you, which is one of the reasons why I really like Vectorworks. I need a channel hookup. Let's make sure it is using everything we want. Instrument type, wattage, purpose, color, channel, dimmer. What am I missing? Instrument type, purpose. I also need position. Is position on there? Purpose, color, channel, dimmer, instrument type, unit number, position. Wattage. Gobo. Oh, I didn't actually put a gobo in my gobos. That's a good point. So real quick, let's put a gobo in my gobo units just so it'll show up on my paperwork. I don't know, Roscoe 22, what is it? What's their numbering system? 77334. It's not going to show up on here, but it will show up when I run paperwork. So I need gobo 1. I want to order this by channel. Okay. And let's run a channel hookup. Okay. Now I can see channel hookup. So here's all of my, here's my channel hookup that Vectorworks generates for you, which is one of the reasons I really like using it. There is an additional program you can use, which I also love using, called Lightright, which will also do this for you in a much cleaner format. And so here's my channel. I haven't put any dimmers in, so that's not in there. All of my instrument types, the wattage of those instruments, their purposes or focus, and my gobo wash, my table special, all of my colors, and then where all they are. And the reason why a channel hookup is called a channel hookup is because it's organized by channel number. And so it's all by the channel numbers that I assigned. If you want to make this look a little bit cleaner, you can also highlight this and transfer it over to like Microsoft Excel or OpenOffice Math, I think is the program. If you need a free Excel clone, OpenOffice Math works very well. Or you can generate all of this information yourself. I just like doing it this way because it's easier. But if you are generating this yourself, you'll just go into Excel or an Excel program and just plug in all of these different things and then just organize it by channel type. And so you'll literally just take every unit and say, oh, where's my channel 1? Channel 1, and then I'll write down channel 1 is a Altman 360Q 6x12. It is a 750 watt lamp. It's focused to A. It's on the second front of house position. It's unit number 4. It's R51, channel 1, dimmer, whatever dimmer you assign to it. So that's your channel hookup. Last but not least, your next one should be your cue sheet. And most of the cue sheets that I have seen have been pretty good. OpenOffice. Oh no, Calc, sorry. So your cue sheet should look something like, so it'll be cue number, page number, description, channels, helps if I can spell channels, intensities, duration. I can spell, I swear I can, thank you. So my description should probably be pretty big, my page number doesn't have to be very big, it does my cue numbers. So my first cue would be on page 1. My description for this cue would be front light coming up. My front light is channels 1 through 8. Not a date. 1 through 8. My intensities are all to 80%, and this is going to be a 3-second cue. My next cue is going to be the main protagonist love interest coming in, so it'll be cue. Let's say they come in on page, I'm sorry, I don't have the version memorized, and it's red light coming up to it for lovers. Now my red light, if I go back to my magic sheet, my red light is my R16, so that's channels 31 through 36. So then go back, channels 31 through 36. I have decided that I'm going to leave my front light up, so I'm not going to write those down, because the only things you need to write down in these cue sheets are anything that's changing. So because those lights aren't changing, and I want all of these to go to 65% over 5 seconds. I want it to be a longer cue. My next cue is going to be a transition from them into the manservant and the other servant, or the fools. Let's say that happens on page 20, which is a red light coming down, amber light coming up. So my amber light is my R04, so my amber is 11 through 18. So this affects 11 through 18 as well as 31 through 36, because I said that my my red light was coming down, so I have to remember to put those red lights in there. 11 through 18 at 70%. 31 through 36 at 0%. And I want that to happen over 5 seconds. And this is how you would write your cue sheet for every cue, for every look that you have described in your show. Your description should probably be a little bit more descriptive than mine were. This was just a demonstration. also try to make sure that all of your paperwork is a little bit cleaner and a little bit more aligned. But yeah, so this should give you a pretty basic overview of what will be expected at state. If you guys do have any questions, please get a hold of Tim Bassett, and he can get you in touch with me. And I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions. If you guys want personal tutorials on Vectorworks, I am also more than willing to do that. I can set up those separately. Otherwise, all of you can basically do everything that I did hand drafting. It takes a little bit longer, but it's very feasible to do that. So yeah, thank you guys very much, and I hope to get your questions soon. Thank you.